Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of the Coach U Show. Today, we're going to talk about how do you build strategic relationships. As a 19-year-old, he knows how to hang out with high-value people. He's going to share what he's learned. So, you're going to want to listen in if you don't know how to network and you're afraid of meeting people or you're getting nervous. So, Jack, how did you become the strategic relationship guy for Caleb Guilliams?
I always say it's asking the right people the right questions. That's a lot of the hardship in life is just figuring out who to ask and what to ask. I really did not know Caleb, and it was a random event, and there's people that I'm much more connected with that are high profile people in the business. But the thing that I liked about Caleb is that he's young, he's innovative, he's a genius communicator and genius at networking, connecting to people. And that's what I saw, and I wanted that for myself. I wanted to learn how to do that. I feel like I have natural giftings that help me with that. I want to expound on those. I want to learn more and learn how to do it better. So I graduated high school last year, went straight to the Army National Guard. I'm in aviation's intelligence. So did basic, did all my job training, learned how to do all that crazy stuff, top secret stuff. And then immediately, 12 days after I graduated from all my training, I was in Nashville with Caleb on the job learning. And so I had no job offered to me. I'm just like, hey, let's fly down there. We'll figure something out. Let's create a new job at the company. I just want to be able to help you guys. I want to learn from you, Caleb. I aspire to be something like you. And I want to take my strengths and I see yours and I want to expound upon mine. So it just worked out. We created a position where I'm working in strategic partnerships. My official title, once I'm done with my trial period, will be head of relation operations. A little wordy, but it was really just asking the right person the right question. And it's all about humility. It's all about personal ability. It's all about the personal connection. We're in a world where everything is going to be AI. Things are going to lose their personality. And that's why business like strategic partnerships, actually creating personal connections with people, will never die. AI will never be able to create that unless maybe we have these like humanoid robots. Have you ever watched Ex Machina? Yep. So maybe that will happen one day, but I hope that's far off.
But you're building real relationships. I can imagine if I was 19-year-old Jack and I saw someone as high profile as Caleb, I would be intimidated to be able to approach him or talk to him. How do you overcome that?
I'd say we're in a world where everyone is such a consumer. You're on TikTok, you're scrolling, and that's like people's comfort place because you aren't being judged. There's no chance of rejection. And the thing is, to get ahead in this world and ask people the right questions, as I was saying, you can't be scared of rejection. I'm not from Utah, but they're in Utah, in Salt Lake City. Those are the best salespeople in the world. Because for 2 years, they go on a mission and they get rejected almost all the time. They have no fear of rejection because they get rejected constantly. So getting over that fear, just being able to put yourself out there. Everyone has like a little person in the back of their head, whether that's self-consciousness. And the thing is, sometimes you just need to bring that forward. So it's just like, put yourself out there. And what's the worst that can happen? That's really what you got to think.
So you got to be more like a missionary.
Exactly.
But what if I'm an introvert? What if I don't have the charisma that you and Caleb have? Am I just doomed to not be good at building relationships with high-value strategic people?
I believe everyone has something to offer. Well, me and Caleb do rely on charisma, things like that. I think those are learned traits. I don't think that those people are just given. Like, some people have natural proclivities to be more advanced in social areas, but I really think that that's a learned skill just from putting yourself out there. And I know that that is much harder for some people than it is for a me or a Caleb, but it's just trial and error. Failing is how you grow and how you learn.
Would you say that someone who has to generate more business for their company could be more like you in building high-value strategic relationships as opposed to selling? Or maybe what some of the differences are in the way you build relationships versus just selling?
So one of the best ways to scale in sales is word of mouth. Actually having a personal connection, as we were talking about earlier, that, okay, you have someone that can vouch for you. And that's where strategic partnerships come in. Because there are a lot of people that have loyal fan bases in a niche, or let's say right now I'm looking at YouTube channels that are big into fly fishing. Because I think that, hey, we sell life insurance. There's a lot of people that like fly fishing that we could sell life insurance to. It's kind of our target audience. There's a lot of them mixed in there. Like, you would never think that a 19-year-old that works for a life insurance company is trying to collaborate with a fly fishing YouTube channel. Like, it doesn't even make sense.
Seems weird.
But there's a lot of value in it. One thing that has greatly helped me is my fascination with watches. It started when I was about 12 or 13 years old. My grandpa had some cool watches, and he said, you know what, Jack, I'm about to buy a a $4,000 watch. Any money that you can find a deal for me, coupons, whatever, I'll give you half of what you saved me. And I found that watch for $3,500. That was the quickest, easiest $250 I've ever made. Not ever made, but as a 13-year-old, $250 like that. And I'm like, hey, I could do this for people. And so quarantine hit when I did it a little bit. I wasn't really into it just because school, friends, stuff like that. And then quarantine hit and the whole world shuts down.
And you're 15.
What am I gonna do? Yeah, I was a freshman in high school. So I just turned 15. And I'm like, okay, let's give this watch thing a chance. And I started flipping these watches, buy a few watches at a time, 2, 3. And I kind of I started out with a $150 watch. First watch I ever bought and sold, $150. I sold it for $375 2 weeks later. And then I just kept using that. There's a book called Smart Cuts where they talk about parlaying your success. That's what I did with my watches. I didn't even know that concept yet, but I would parlay the money and then I would just keep growing it like an avalanche. And my margins would increase or stay the same, but it'd be more money because I have more money to buy watches with. So I've been doing that for a little while. Took a break, obviously, while I was at basic training and stuff.
Yeah.
But now I'm working with a partner right now to launch an e-commerce company. We have a website. It looks great, but I don't know how effective it is quite yet. So still in the beta version. But all that to say, that helps me out with strategic partnerships because I can walk up to a high net worth individual, but you don't need to be high net worth to be high worth.
Right.
That's something I believe. Derek Anderson was talking about human value life balance sheet, and he was talking about how you should not attribute your value as a human to your net worth. We are so much deeper than that.
Yeah.
So your human life value balance sheet is your education, your habits, who you are as a person, your values, your morals. All that to say, I can go up to a person and I know exactly what watch they're wearing. I know what it's called. I can walk up to a guy, and just today I walked up to a guy. I said, hey, I love your Rolex. Is that a Daytona or is that a Rolex Explorer 2? And it instantly brings them out of autopilot. They're actually intrigued to hear what I have to say. And it's an actual conversation where you exchange stuff. There's so much small talk in today's world and people are just on autopilot. It's the same conversation they've had 50 times, a million times. And so you just get them out of autopilot like that. And I'm not saying it has to be watches. It has to be something you're genuinely interested in.
You start with a hobby,
Yep.
something that you love. So Jack, what advice do you have for other 19-year-olds out there where they haven't really figured out what they want to do? Maybe it's not life insurance, it could be something else.
Yeah, so I didn't figure out what I wanted to do until halfway through my senior year. I had no clue what I wanted to do. Is it college? Do I want to go to the military? Do I want to go straight to the workforce and try and make something happen? And all these were very daunting. And I applied to colleges, got into a few colleges that I thought were cool, but it just didn't make sense to me that there's so many people out there going to college, putting themselves in 6 figures worth of debt. And there's not as many successful people as there are people that go to college, not even close.
Yeah.
I'm like, that can't be, it's not necessarily, you don't need it. And so, not to say that education is bad,
right.
And I probably will still get a college degree, possibly online while I work full time, but I thought I need options. I need to keep doors open because I don't know what I want to do. And so I'm thinking like, do I want to go be an air traffic controller like my grandpa did? He was an air traffic controller and then on the side got into real estate, which then became private equity, and he's made a very good life for himself. So I'm like, do I want to do something like that? I'm like, or do I want to go to college? Do I want to just work? So I said, I need options. I need doors open. So I found the Army National Guard. And for that, and I've always wanted to serve, so that's a big part of why I joined. My dad, one of his biggest regrets is not joining the military. And so I wanted to put my last name back on an Army uniform. My grandpa was in the Navy. My great uncle, he was in the Army. So to be able to put my last name on a U.S. Army uniform is something very special and something that I hold with the most pride in my entire life. One of the proudest moments of my life is graduating from that. Anyways, all this to say, you do not have to take the beaten path. You do not have to go to college, not figure out what you want to do, and spend hundreds of thousands of dollars doing that. There's so many people out there that have a $200,000 degree that do not even use it. Can you imagine that?
Yeah, like me.
Okay, imagine this. You have no money. You're 18 years old. You buy a $200,000 car that you think you're going to be paying down for the next 20 years, 30 years.
Yeah.
And then you go and park it in a parking garage and you never use that car again. Never. You just leave it there.
Yeah.
That's what people do with their education.
But your parents bought it, so it's all right.
Yeah, a lot of people's parents buy it. But I did not have that luxury. My parents were not going to spend any money on education.
I love how you just jump into things and not just do the cookie cutter path everyone else has. So just a few minutes ago, you were speaking on stage, doing this presentation with me. What did you feel about, like, what was that experience like?
Well, I was a little nervous because I asked Dennis what he was speaking on, and he told me I would find out. So it was real live, and he was showing an example of how easy AI is to utilize in your business, and the fact that we hadn't even shared anything about what was gonna go on. And I was able to replicate I was able to review someone's entire website and articles that they had written through AI without ever doing that before, without Dennis teaching me how, while we were live in a 30-minute talk.
In front of a whole bunch of people, a room full of people.
200 people.
Yeah.
And so...
Pressure there.
Yeah. So it was a little bit of pressure, but my dad was a pastor. He's modeled speaking in front of people to me his entire life. I've spoken before in front of people, so that was not as daunting as it might be to a lot of people.
But you're using a ton of tools going back and forth. I never touched the laptop once, did I?
True.
So you did the whole thing. All I did was talk.
True.
So congrats to you. So if Jack can do it, you can learn how to do this stuff too. I really think it's upstairs in the head. You can be charismatic and be super intelligent and whatnot like Jack, but I think there's something about just being willing to go for it.
For sure.
And that's the thing, people can sense your vibe. So when you have high value relationships, people can sense your approach. They can sense like who you are as a person. And I think that's the thing that really shines through. And the fact you connect through a watch or whatever is just a way to show that we share the same kinds of values.
Yeah, it's just asking the right people, the right things. Humility, authenticity, and just actually doing what you're saying you're gonna do. That's something that's so important, and a lot of people just cannot commit on the back end. They can't actually do what they say they're going to. And if you don't have your word, what do you have?
It's the only thing you got. Amen.
Those are my few tidbits.
Well, Jack Wendt, who runs strategic partnerships for Caleb Guilliams, if you're a young adult or if you're a client of Better Wealth, I would love to hear what your feedback is. Any questions you have for Jack or for me. Jack, how do people find you?
You can find me through my email, jack@betterwealth.com. If you just send me an email, I could hook you up with a meeting with Caleb anytime, and we could make some really cool things happen, some collaboration. It'd be awesome.
Awesome. Thank you, Mr. Jack.
Thank you, Dennis.
And thank you guys for another amazing edition of the Coach U Show.